The cold October wind whistled through the dusty streets of Ukiah, California, as Olivia Newton clutched her small carpetbag and pressed a protective hand against her swollen belly. After weeks of travel by train and stagecoach, she had finally reached her destination and the man who had promised to marry her sight unseen. Standing there in her faded blue dress, the 22-year-old widow gazed at the ramshackle building before her, where her future was supposed to begin. "You sure this is the right place, madam?" asked the stagecoach driver, eyeing her condition with concern as he set down her trunk. "Yes, thank you," Olivia replied, squinting at the small homestead on the outskirts of town. According to the letters they'd exchanged, Thomas Bradford would be waiting for her, eager to start their new life together. She'd been honest about everything: her circumstances, her 5-month pregnancy, her desperate need to find stability after her first husband died in a mining accident back in Ohio. Thomas had seemed understanding, even compassionate in his letters, writing that he needed a wife and would welcome her child as his own. The driver tipped his hat and climbed back onto his seat. "Good luck to you, madam," he said, before snapping the reins and leaving Olivia alone in the swirling dust. She took a deep breath and walked toward the door. Before she could knock, it swung open. A thin-faced man with cold eyes stared at her, his gaze immediately dropping to her rounded stomach. "Mr. Bradford?" she asked, forcing a smile. The man's face hardened. "You're bigger than I thought you'd be." Olivia's smile faltered. "In your last letter I explained I was expecting. I'll be delivering in about 4 months. Thomas Bradford's lip curled. "You said you were with child. You didn't say you were practically ready to burst." He looked her up and down with disgust. "This won't do. I need a wife who can work, not one who'll be laid up with someone else's bastard." Olivia flinched as if she'd been struck. "Mr. Bradford, please. We had an agreement." "I've traveled all this way, agreement's off." He started to close the door. "I'll not be raising another man's get. Find yourself another fool." "Wait," Olivia cried, desperation clawing at her throat. "I have nowhere else to go. I sold everything I had to get here." "Not my problem," Thomas replied coldly. "Try the church. Maybe they take in fallen women." The door slammed shut, leaving Olivia standing alone, one hand still reaching out, the other cradling her unborn child. Tears stung her eyes as she realized the full horror of her situation: penniless, pregnant, and abandoned in a strange town with winter approaching. Olivia stood frozen for several minutes, unable to move as shock washed over her. Only when the wind picked up, sending a shiver through her body, did she finally turn away from Bradford's door. With trembling hands, she picked up her trunk and began the long walk back toward town. Ukiah was still a relatively small settlement, though growing steadily thanks to the nearby sawmills and the increasing number of farms and ranches in the surrounding valleys. As Olivia trudged down the main street, she felt the curious stares of passers-by. A pregnant woman alone was an uncommon sight, especially one carrying her own luggage with tear-streaked cheeks. Outside the general store, she set down her trunk and sank onto it, overwhelmed by exhaustion and despair. The church Bradford had mentioned mockingly was visible at the end of the street, but the thought of begging for charity made her stomach knot with shame. "You look like you could use some help, madam." Olivia looked up to find a tall man standing before her. He wore a worn leather vest over a blue work shirt, and a cowboy hat was pushed back on his head, revealing sun-bronzed features and kind eyes. Something about his steady gaze made her straighten her shoulders despite her misery. "I'm fine, thank you," she said automatically, though they both knew it was a lie. The man raised an eyebrow. "No disrespect intended, but you don't look fine. You look like you've had about the worst day a person can have." A sob escaped before she could stop it. "That's an accurate assessment, sir." He crouched down so they were at eye level. "Name's Xavier Callahan. I own a ranch about 3 miles outside of town. Would telling a stranger your troubles help any?" There was something so genuine in his expression that Olivia found herself speaking before she could think better of it. "I'm Olivia Newton. I came here to marry a man who changed his mind when he saw me." Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. Xavier's eyes followed the movement, understanding dawning in his expression. "Thomas Bradford," he said, not a question but a statement. Olivia blinked in surprise. "You know him?" "Know of him. Word was he sent away for a bride." Xavier's jaw tightened. "Man's got a reputation for being penny wise and pound foolish, always looking for the cheapest way to get things done. Including acquiring a wife, apparently," Olivia said bitterly. Xavier stood and offered his hand. "Let me buy you some coffee and something to eat. Then we can figure out what to do." Olivia hesitated. "I couldn't impose. It's not an imposition if it's freely offered," Xavier said. "Besides, my ma would turn in her grave if she knew I left a lady in distress sitting on a trunk in the middle of town." Despite everything, Olivia found herself smiling at his earnestness. She allowed him to help her to her feet, noting the strength in his calloused hand. "My trunk? We'll leave it at the hotel for now," Xavier said, picking it up as if it weighed nothing. "Come on." 15 minutes later, Olivia sat in a small cafe with a hot cup of coffee and a plate of stew in front of her. The warmth and kindness shown by Xavier Callahan had momentarily pushed back the cold edge of panic, though her situation remained dire. "So you've got no money and nowhere to go," Xavier summarized after she'd explained her circumstances. "And that child's due in 4 months' time." Olivia nodded, embarrassed by her predicament yet somehow not ashamed to admit it to this man. "I was widowed 6 months ago. James, my husband, worked in the coal mines. There was an accident." She swallowed hard. "When I discovered I was expecting, I knew I couldn't provide for a child alone. The advertisement from Mr. Bradford seemed like providence." Xavier's expression darkened. "Nothing providential about Thomas Bradford. Man would sell his own mother if the price was right." He took a sip of his coffee, studying her over the rim of the cup. "You have any skills? Besides being a wife and mother, I mean." "I can read and write well. I taught the younger children back home before I married," Olivia said. "I'm also skilled at sewing, cooking, preserving food, normal household management." Xavier nodded slowly, seeming to come to some decision. "I've got a proposition for you, Mrs. Newton. It's not charity, mind you, but a mutual arrangement." Olivia braced herself. She'd already had one disastrous proposition today. "I'm listening." "I need help at my ranch. My sister Eliza has been keeping house for me, but she's marrying a fella from up Sacramento way next month. I'll be without anyone to cook or keep things in order." He leaned forward. "I'm offering you a job, room, board, and wages. You can stay until after your baby comes, get back on your feet." Olivia blinked in surprise. "You'd hire a pregnant woman you just met." "I'm hiring a capable woman who needs work," Xavier corrected. "The fact that you're expecting just means you'll need some accommodations. But I reckon you'll work twice as hard as most to prove yourself, and that's the kind of person I want on my ranch." It wasn't what she had traveled west for, but it was a lifeline when she needed one most. "That's very kind of you, Mr. Callahan." "Xavier," he corrected. "And it's not kindness, it's business, though." His expression softened. "I admit I've got no fondness for men who break their word. My father taught me a man's handshake is his bond. Seems Bradford needs that lesson." "I accept your offer," Olivia said with quiet dignity. "When would you like me to start?" "No time like the present," Xavier replied. I've got supplies to pick up, then we can head out to the ranch." "That suit you," Olivia nodded, feeling for the first time since arriving in Ukiah that perhaps all was not lost. "Yes, thank you." As they left the cafe, Olivia noticed several townspeople watching them curiously. News traveled fast in small communities, and she suspected her situation was already becoming common knowledge. The thought made her cheeks burn. "Ignore them," Xavier said quietly, correctly interpreting her discomfort. "Folks will talk, then they'll find something new to gossip about next week." "And until then?" she asked. Xavier's mouth quirked up at one corner. "Until then, we give them something worth talking about." Before she could ask what he meant, he placed a gentle hand at the small of her back and guided her toward the general store. His posture protective and possessive all at once, a clear message to the onlookers that Olivia Newton was under his protection now. Inside the store, Xavier efficiently gathered the supplies he needed, adding several items that Olivia hadn't seen on his original list. "Extra blankets," he explained when he caught her questioning look. "The nights are getting colder, and the cabin Eliza's been using gets drafty. And this," he added, placing a jar of honey on the counter, "because sweet things help when times are hard." The simple kindness nearly undid her. "I'll repay you," she promised. "We'll settle accounts at the end of the month like any employer and employee," Xavier said firmly, then turned to the shopkeeper. "Put it all on my tab, Walt, including Mrs. Newton's trunk from outside. We'll pick it up on our way out." The journey to Xavier's ranch took just under an hour by wagon. As they traveled, the landscape opened up, revealing rolling hills dotted with oak trees and pines. Cattle grazed in the distance, and Xavier pointed out the boundaries of his property with obvious pride. "It's not the biggest spread in the county, but it's good land," he told her. "My pa staked his claim here 20 years ago when California was still finding its feet, built it up from nothing." "It's beautiful," Olivia said sincerely, breathing in the clean autumn air. After months in mining towns with their perpetual haze of coal dust, the open country was like paradise. "How long have you been running it?" "5 years on my own since Pa passed. Before that, we worked it together from the time I was old enough to sit a horse." Xavier glanced at her. "What about you? Where are you from originally?" "A small town in Ohio. Nothing special about it except it was home." Olivia watched a hawk circle overhead. "After James died, there wasn't much keeping me there. His family blamed me for his death somehow. Said if I hadn't been such a poor housewife, he wouldn't have taken extra shifts in the mine." Xavier's hands tightened on the reins. "That's about the most backward thinking I've ever heard." Olivia shrugged. "Grief makes people cruel sometimes, and when I realized I was expecting." She placed her hand on her belly. "Well, an unwed mother has few options and a widowed one not many more. So you answered Bradford's advertisement." "One of many I wrote to," she admitted. "He was the first to respond favorably, especially after I disclosed my condition." Xavier's expression darkened again. "Man probably thought he was getting free labor and didn't bother reading the part about you expecting." He shook his head. "His loss, my gain." The simple statement, delivered matter-of-factly, warmed something in Olivia that had been cold since her husband's death. Not romantic interest, but basic human acknowledgement, the recognition that she had value beyond her current difficulties. As they crested a hill, Xavier's ranch came into view. The main house was a substantial 2-story structure built of sturdy timber, with a wide porch and several outbuildings nearby. A smaller cabin stood about 50 yards away, smoke curling from its chimney. "That'll be your place," Xavier said, nodding toward the cabin. "Eliza's been living there, but she's up at the main house most days now, getting ready for her wedding. There's a bedroom, kitchen, and small sitting area, Nothing fancy, but it's solid and dry. It looks perfect, Olivia said honestly. After the uncertainty of the morning, the little cabin represented safety and stability, however temporary. As the wagon pulled up to the main house, the front door opened, and a young woman with the same dark hair as Xavier emerged. She wore a practical dress with an apron, and her welcoming smile faltered only briefly when she noticed Olivia's condition. "You must be Eliza," Olivia said, suddenly nervous. Would Xavier's sister approve of bringing a pregnant stranger to the ranch? "And you're not the supplies my brother went to town for," Eliza replied with a raised eyebrow, though her tone remained friendly. Xavier jumped down from the wagon and helped Olivia descend carefully. "Eliza, this is Mrs. Olivia Newton. She's going to take over your duties after you leave." "Mrs. Newton, my sister Eliza." Eliza's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with understanding. "You're the mail-order bride Thomas Bradford sent for. News truly did travel fast in Ukiah." "Yes," Olivia admitted, "though as you can see, the arrangement didn't work out." Eliza snorted. "Bradford's a fool, then. Come inside, you must be exhausted." She shot her brother an approving look. "For once, Xavier's impulsiveness has led to something good. We've been worried sick about who'd keep this place running after I leave." "I wasn't being impulsive," Xavier protested. "I was being practical." "You can be both," Eliza said with sisterly frankness. She took Olivia's arm. "Let's get you settled while my brother unloads the supplies. You can tell me all about your journey west." The inside of the main house was surprisingly comfortable, with well-crafted furniture and colorful quilts that softened the masculine atmosphere. Eliza sat Olivia at the kitchen table and poured her a cup of tea, her movements efficient but welcoming. "How far along are you?" she asked, glancing at Olivia's belly. 5 months. The baby's due in February." Eliza nodded. "Good timing, actually. The worst of winter will be over and you'll have time to get your strength back before spring brings the real work." She sat across from Olivia. "My brother told you I'm getting married." "Yes, congratulations," Olivia said sincerely. "Is your fiancé from around here, Joseph?" "No, he owns a hardware store in Sacramento. Met him when Xavier and I went to the state fair last year." Eliza's face softened at the mention of her betrothed. "We've been corresponding ever since, and he proposed when he visited this summer." "That's wonderful," Olivia said, ignoring the pang of envy. Her own marriage, though affectionate, had been more practical than romantic. James had been kind but reserved, and their brief time together had been overshadowed by his long hours in the mine and constant financial worries. "It is," Eliza agreed, "but I've been sick with worry about leaving Xavier alone. He can run the ranch with his eyes closed, but the man would live on coffee and jerky if left to his own devices." She leaned forward. "So you see, your arrival is something of a blessing, Mrs. Newton, however it came about." "Please call me Olivia," she said. "And I hope I can live up to your expectations. I want to earn my keep here." "You will," Eliza said confidently. "And don't let Xavier work you too hard in your condition. He's a good man, but sometimes he forgets not everyone has his stamina." Before Olivia could respond, Xavier entered the kitchen, his arms loaded with packages. "Are you two talking about me? My ears are burning." "Just giving Mrs. Newton Olivia some advice about handling you," Eliza said innocently. Xavier set the packages on the counter with a grunt. "Don't believe a word she says. My sister thinks I'm still 12 years old." "That's because you still act 12 sometimes," Eliza retorted, but her affection for her brother was obvious. She stood and began unpacking the supplies. "Why don't you show Olivia to the cabin? I'll start dinner." Xavier nodded. "Your trunk's on the wagon. We'll take it over." The cabin, upon closer inspection, proved to be even cozier than it had appeared from a distance. Though small, it was clean and well-maintained, with curtains at the windows and a colorful rag rug on the plank floor. "Eliza fixed it up nice," Xavier said, setting Olivia's trunk at the foot of the bed. "Said a home should look like someone cares about it, even if it's just temporary." "She's very wise," Olivia replied, running her hand over the patchwork quilt that covered the bed. "Thank you, Xavier." "For everything." He looked uncomfortable with her gratitude. "You'll earn your keep, like you said. I'm no charity operation." "Still, you took a chance on me when you didn't have to," she persisted. "I won't forget that." Xavier tugged on his hat brim. "Get settled in. Dinner's at 6 in the main house. Tomorrow I'll show you around the place, let you get your bearings." He headed for the door, then paused. "Olivia." "Yes." "Bradford's a damn fool," he said simply, then stepped outside, closing the door behind him. Alone for the first time since her disastrous arrival in Ukiah, Olivia sank onto the bed and finally allowed the tears to come. She cried for her lost hopes, for her uncertain future, for the child who would be born without a father. But mixed with her tears of sorrow was a profound sense of relief. Against all odds, she had found refuge. It wasn't the future she had planned, but perhaps it could be something better. As the weeks passed, Olivia settled into life at the Callahan ranch. True to his word, Xavier was a fair employer, adjusting her duties to accommodate her pregnancy while never treating her as if she were incapable. She cooked meals for the ranch hands, managed the household accounts, and kept the main house clean and orderly. In the evenings, she often mended clothes or quilted by the fire, finding comfort in the familiar tasks. Eliza's wedding in mid-November was a joyous occasion, though tinged with sadness for Xavier, who clearly adored his sister. Olivia took on the role of hostess for the small reception held at the ranch, earning grateful looks from both bride and groom. "You're a natural at this," Joseph Lambert told Olivia as she served coffee after the wedding feast. "Xavier's lucky to have found you." "I'm the fortunate one," Olivia corrected gently, aware of how easily misunderstandings could arise. "Mr. Callahan gave me a position when I desperately needed one." Joseph smiled knowingly. "So formal. Well, positions have a way of changing over time, don't they?" Before Olivia could respond, Xavier approached, clapping his new brother-in-law on the shoulder. "Stop monopolizing Mrs. Newton, Joseph. She's working, not socializing." "Can't she do both?" Eliza asked, joining them. "Olivia deserves to enjoy the celebration, too. She's done most of the work making it happen." Xavier looked chagrined. "Of course. I didn't mean to imply it's fine," Olivia assured him. "I enjoy being useful." Something flickered in Xavier's eyes, frustration, perhaps, or concern. "You're more than useful, Olivia." The simple statement, delivered in his straightforward manner, made her pulse quicken inexplicably. Before she could respond, one of the ranch hands called Xavier away to help with a minor crisis involving the wedding cake and an overly curious dog. After the newlyweds departed for Sacramento the next day, the ranch seemed quieter, emptier somehow. Though Olivia had only known Eliza for a month, she missed the other woman's practical advice and easy companionship. Xavier, too, seemed more subdued, often working longer hours than necessary. "You miss her," Olivia observed one evening in early December as they sat in the main house after dinner. The first real snow of winter was falling outside, and Xavier had insisted she stay rather than make the short walk to her cabin until it let up. Xavier looked up from the ranch ledger he was reviewing. "Eliza, of course. She's been my right hand since our parents died. She'll visit," Olivia said, "and she's happy with Joseph." "I know." Xavier closed the ledger. "It's selfish to wish she'd stayed." "It's human," Olivia corrected gently. We always miss the people we love, even when we're happy for their good fortune. Xavier studied her face. You speaking from experience? Olivia nodded, her hand moving to her rounded belly. I miss James, even though our marriage wasn't. Well, it wasn't a grand passion. But he was kind to me, and I think he would have been a good father. How did you meet him? Xavier asked, seeming genuinely interested. Our families attended the same church. He'd admired me for years, apparently, but was too shy to speak up. When my father died and left my mother and me in difficult circumstances, James offered marriage. Olivia smiled at the memory. It was practical for both of us. He needed someone to keep house and I needed security, but affection grew over time. And love? Xavier asked quietly. Olivia considered the question honestly. A form of it, yes, not the kind you read about in novels, but a steady caring. When he died, I grieved truly. She looked into the fire. When I discovered I was expecting, I felt both terrified and blessed. A part of him would live on, but how would I provide for a child alone? Xavier's expression was thoughtful. My parents had what you might call a grand passion. They eloped against her family's wishes. Her father was a banker in San Francisco, thought his daughter was too good for a rancher. He smiled wryly. Ma never regretted it, not even when we were eating beans 3 days running during the hard times. They sound remarkable, Olivia said. They were. Xavier leaned forward. I always figured I'd find something like what they had. Foolish, maybe. Not foolish, Olivia said. Hopeful. Their eyes met across the small space between them, and something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement, perhaps, of shared loneliness, of mutual respect that might be growing into something more. The moment was broken by a particularly strong gust of wind that rattled the windows. Xavier stood, moving to check that they were securely latched. Storm's getting worse. You'd better stay here tonight. You can take Eliza's old room. Olivia nodded, knowing it was the sensible choice. Thank you. I should probably turn in soon anyway. The baby's been quite active today. Xavier's expression softened. May I? He asked, gesturing toward her belly. The request surprised her, but she nodded. Xavier knelt beside her chair and placed a large, calloused hand gently on the curve of her stomach. Almost immediately, the baby kicked against his palm. Xavier's face transformed with wonder. Strong little thing, isn't it? Very, Olivia agreed, trying to ignore the warmth spreading through her at his touch. Sometimes I think I'm carrying a future cattle driver, the way this child stamps around. Xavier laughed, a rich, deep sound that Olivia realized she'd heard too rarely. Boy or girl, this one's got spirit. He reluctantly removed his hand and stood. You need anything before you turn in? Extra blankets, something to eat. I'm fine, thank you, Olivia said, touched by his consideration. Good night, Xavier. Good night, Olivia, he replied softly. Sleep well. That night, lying in Eliza's old bed, Olivia found herself thinking about Xavier Callahan far more than was appropriate for an employee. His kindness, his integrity, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, all these had become precious to her in ways she hadn't anticipated when she accepted his offer of employment. This is foolishness, she whispered to herself in the darkness. He's your employer, nothing more. But her heart, which had been so carefully guarded since James's death, wasn't listening to reason. The next morning, Olivia woke to find 6 inches of fresh snow blanketing the ranch. Xavier was already out with the hands, ensuring the cattle had access to feed despite the weather. Grateful for the warm house, Olivia set about preparing a hearty breakfast that would sustain the men through their morning work. When Xavier and the others stomped in, brushing snow from their coats and hats, Olivia had coffee, flapjacks, bacon, and eggs waiting. The ranch hands dug in appreciatively, but Xavier paused beside her at the stove. "You didn't have to do this," he said quietly. "Could have waited until I got back to help you." "I'm perfectly capable of cooking breakfast," Olivia replied. "Besides, you all needed something hot after being out in this weather." Xavier's gaze was warm. "You're something special, Olivia Newton." The simple compliment made her cheeks flush. "It's just breakfast. It's more than that, and you know it." Xavier filled his plate and joined his men at the table, leaving Olivia to wonder exactly what he meant. After breakfast, Xavier insisted on escorting Olivia back to her cabin so she could change clothes and retrieve some sewing she'd been working on. The path had been partially cleared, but Xavier offered his arm for stability anyway. "I've been thinking," he said as they crunched through the snow. "It doesn't make sense for you to stay out here once the baby comes. The cabin's too far from the main house if you need help, especially in weather like this." Olivia's heart sank. Was he planning to let her go after all? "I understand if you'd prefer I make other arrangements." "What?" "No." Xavier looked genuinely alarmed. "That's not what I meant at all. I was thinking you should move into the main house. There's plenty of room and it would be more practical." "Oh." Relief flooded her, followed by uncertainty. "But wouldn't that seem inappropriate? A single woman living under the same roof as a bachelor?" Xavier frowned. "I hadn't considered that. Folks around here know me well enough not to gossip, but I wouldn't want to damage your reputation." They reached the cabin, and Xavier held the door for her. Inside, he remained near the entrance while Olivia gathered her sewing basket and a change of clothes. "Maybe I could ask Mrs. Landry from town to stay with us for a while after the baby comes," Xavier suggested. "She's a widow, respectable. Acts as midwife for most births around here anyway." Olivia was touched by his consideration. "That might work, though I hate to put you to extra expense." Xavier waved away her concern. "Your welfare and the baby's is what matters." He hesitated. "There is another solution, but I wouldn't presume to suggest it." Olivia paused, enfolding a shawl. "What solution?" Xavier removed his hat, turning it in his hands, a nervous gesture she'd never seen from him before. "We could marry." Olivia nearly dropped her sewing basket. "I beg your pardon." "It would solve the propriety issue," Xavier continued, his words coming faster now. "Your child would have my name, and you'd have the security of a legal arrangement. No one could question your presence in the main house then." Olivia stared at him, scarcely believing what she was hearing. "You're proposing marriage as a practical solution to a logistical problem." Xavier winced. "That came out wrong. I'm not good with words, Olivia." He took a deep breath. "The truth is, I've grown to care for you these past weeks, more than care. But I know you came here expecting to marry a different man, and your heart might not be free to consider another offer so soon." "Xavier." Olivia's voice was barely audible. "You don't have to answer now," he said quickly. "Think on it. It's a big decision, and I want you to be sure." He put his hat back on. "I'll wait outside while you change." After he left, Olivia sank onto the edge of the bed, her mind whirling. A marriage proposal was the last thing she'd expected when she woke up this morning. And yet, wasn't this what she had come west for? To find security, a home for her child, perhaps even companionship. But Xavier wasn't offering just practical security. He'd said he cared for her. The thought made her heart race. Did she care for him in return? The answer, she realized, was unequivocally yes. Somewhere between that first meeting outside the general store and this snowy morning, Xavier Callahan had become essential to her happiness. When she emerged from the cabin a few minutes later, Xavier was waiting patiently, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. "I've thought about your proposal," Olivia said. Xavier straightened, his expression carefully neutral. "And I have conditions," she said firmly. A flicker of hope crossed his face. Name them. First, this can't be just about convenience or the baby. If we marry, it has to be with the intention of building a real marriage based on mutual respect and affection. Olivia met his gaze steadily. Second, you must understand that while I care for you deeply, I'm still coming to know my own heart. I need time. Those seem like reasonable conditions, Xavier said, a slow smile spreading across his face. Does that mean you're considering my offer? I'm accepting it, Olivia clarified. But with the understanding that we'll wait until after the new year to make it official. I want to be sure, Xavier, for both our sakes. Xavier nodded, his eyes alight with happiness. I can wait, and Olivia, I promise you won't regret this. The week before Christmas brought clear skies and slightly warmer temperatures, allowing Xavier and his men to attend to ranch business that had been delayed by the earlier storm. Olivia, meanwhile, prepared for the holidays with an enthusiasm she hadn't felt in years. She baked gingerbread and sugar cookies, hung evergreen boughs in the main house, and even managed to find small gifts for Xavier and the ranch hands. The impending marriage, still their private secret, gave everything a special glow of anticipation. On Christmas Eve, Xavier surprised her with a small package wrapped in brown paper and tied with a red ribbon. You didn't have to get me anything, Olivia protested, though she was secretly delighted. Open it, Xavier urged, looking boyishly eager. Inside the package, Olivia found a delicate silver locket on a fine chain. She opened it to discover a tiny, perfectly rendered miniature painting of a sunset over the ranch's rolling hills. Xavier, it's beautiful, she whispered, genuinely moved. Commissioned it from an artist in Sacramento when I went up to visit Eliza last week, he explained. Thought you might like a piece of the ranch to keep with you. I love it, Olivia said sincerely. Would you help me put it on? Xavier carefully fastened the chain around her neck, his fingers brushing against her skin. Looks right on you, he said softly. Olivia touched the locket. My gift for you seems inadequate now. I doubt that, Xavier said. But even if you'd gotten me nothing at all, having you here would be gift enough. Olivia handed him a small, neatly wrapped package. It's not much, but I made it myself. Xavier unwrapped the gift to find a hand-knitted scarf in a deep blue that matched his eyes. Olivia, this is perfect. He immediately wrapped it around his neck. No one's made something like this for me since Ma died. Merry Christmas, Xavier, Olivia said softly. Merry Christmas, Olivia. He hesitated, then leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. First of many, I hope. The days between Christmas and New Year's passed in a pleasant rhythm of work and quiet evenings together. As January 1872 dawned clear and cold, Olivia found herself seated beside Xavier in the town's small church, publicly announcing their engagement to the surprised but largely approving community of Ukiah. Never thought I'd see the day Xavier Callahan would settle down, Mrs. Landry commented afterward, patting Olivia's hand. You must be quite a woman to tame that one. I wouldn't say I've tamed him, Olivia replied with a smile, more that we've found harmony together. As they prepared to leave the church, Olivia caught sight of a familiar face, Thomas Bradford, standing with a group of men near the door. When he saw her, his expression shifted from surprise to calculation. Ignore him, Xavier murmured, noting the direction of her gaze. He's not worth your attention. But Bradford approached anyway, his thin smile not reaching his eyes. Mrs. Newton, I see you've landed on your feet. His gaze flicked to Xavier. Callahan, congratulations on your acquisition. Xavier's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Olivia spoke, her voice calm but firm. Mr. Bradford, how fortunate to see you. I've been meaning to thank you. Bradford blinked in confusion. Thank me. Yes, if you hadn't broken your word, I might never have found true happiness. Olivia smiled serenely, her hand resting on her belly. You did me a great service, though you didn't intend to. Bradford's face flushed with anger, but the presence of the entire congregation prevented him from making a scene. With a curt nod, he stalked away. That was magnificent, Xavier said quietly as they walked to the wagon, though I'm still tempted to teach him some manners. He's not worth the effort, Olivia said, echoing Xavier's earlier words. Besides, everything I said was true. His rejection led me to you, and for that I can only be grateful. Xavier helped her into the wagon, his touch lingering longer than necessary. You're an extraordinary woman, Olivia Newton, soon to be Olivia Callahan. The name sent a thrill through her. I like the sound of that. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the ranch, with only Mrs. Landry, the minister, and the ranch hands as witnesses. Eliza sent a telegram expressing her delight and promising a visit in the spring. Despite its modest nature, the wedding was everything Olivia had ever wanted, filled with genuine affection and hope for the future. That night, as Xavier showed her to the master bedroom they would now share, Olivia felt a momentary shyness. Though they had agreed to wait for physical intimacy until after the baby's birth, the transition from employer and employee to husband and wife still felt momentous. I had the men move your things in earlier, Xavier said, opening the door to reveal a room transformed. Fresh curtains hung at the windows, and a rocking chair sat near the fireplace, clearly new additions for her comfort. It's perfect, Olivia said, genuinely touched by his thoughtfulness. Xavier cleared his throat. I'll sleep in the chair tonight, give you space to get settled. That's not necessary, Olivia said, gathering her courage. The bed is plenty large enough for both of us. I'd like to fall asleep beside my husband. Xavier's expression softened. Are you sure? Olivia nodded. We're married now. Sharing a bed seems appropriate, even if we're waiting for the rest. That night, as Olivia lay beside Xavier in the darkness, his solid presence beside her felt right in a way she couldn't articulate. When he cautiously reached for her hand, she laced her fingers through his, a simple connection that somehow meant more than words could express. Good night, Mrs. Callahan, Xavier whispered. Good night, Mr. Callahan, Olivia replied, smiling in the darkness. February arrived with intermittent snowfall and increasing anticipation as Olivia's due date approached. Xavier became almost comically protective, insisting she rest frequently and fretting over every small discomfort she experienced. Mrs. Landry, who had moved into one of the spare bedrooms a week earlier to be present for the birth, watched his hovering with amused tolerance. If you don't stop pacing, you'll wear a hole in my floor, Olivia told Xavier one evening as she sat by the fire, knitting a tiny cap for the baby. Can't help it, Xavier admitted. I've never been responsible for an expectant mother before. I'm perfectly fine, Olivia assured him. Mrs. Landry says everything is progressing normally. Still, maybe I should ride for the doctor tomorrow just to be safe. Mrs. Landry snorted from her seat in the corner. I've delivered more babies than that young Dr. Phillips has had hot dinners, but if it'll calm your nerves, Xavier Callahan, by all means fetch him. Xavier had the grace to look sheepish. I trust you completely, Mrs. Landry. It's just that Olivia and the baby are so precious to me. The simple declaration warmed Olivia's heart. Though they had been married less than a month, Xavier had embraced his role as her husband and protector with complete dedication. Each day, she found herself falling more deeply in love with this steadfast, honorable man who had saved her from disaster and offered her a future she had never dared dream of. 3 days later, in the early morning hours of February 10th, Olivia's labor began. Xavier, despite his anxiety, proved remarkably helpful, following Mrs. Landry's instructions without question and providing steady support whenever Olivia needed it. "You're doing wonderfully, my dear," Mrs. Landry encouraged as the labor intensified. "This baby's eager to meet you." "And I'm eager to meet him or her," Olivia gasped between contractions, "though perhaps with less pain involved." Xavier wiped her brow with a cool cloth. "You're the strongest person I know, Olivia. You can do this." After 8 hours of labor, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy with a shock of dark hair and a powerful set of lungs. Mrs. Landry cleaned and wrapped the infant while Xavier held Olivia's hand, his eyes suspiciously bright with unshed tears. "Would you like to hold your son, Mrs. Landry?" asked Olivia, placing the swaddled bundle in her arms. Olivia gazed down at the tiny face, overcome with love. "He's perfect," she whispered. Xavier perched carefully on the edge of the bed. "He's beautiful," he agreed, gently touching the baby's cheek with one finger. "Just like his mother." "Would you like to hold him?" Olivia asked. A flash of uncertainty crossed Xavier's face. "I don't want to hurt him. My hands are so big and he's so small." "You won't hurt him," Olivia assured him. "Here, sit beside me." With careful movements, Xavier positioned himself next to Olivia and accepted the precious bundle. The sight of her strong, capable husband cradling the tiny infant with such tender care made Olivia's heart swell with emotion. "Hello, little one," Xavier whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Well, I suppose I'm your pa now, and I promise to love you and protect you just like I do your ma." Tears filled Olivia's eyes at the simple declaration. Mrs. Landry discreetly slipped from the room, leaving the new family to their private moment. "What shall we name him?" Xavier asked, still gazing at the baby with wonder. Olivia had been considering names for months, but had hesitated to discuss them with Xavier, uncertain how he would feel about naming another man's child. "I was thinking James, after his father," she said cautiously. "But only if you're comfortable with that," Xavier nodded. "James is a good name, a strong name." He looked up at her. "But what about James Xavier Callahan? That way he carries something from both his fathers." The suggestion, so generous and understanding, brought fresh tears to Olivia's eyes. "That's perfect," she whispered. "Thank you." "No, Olivia," Xavier said softly. "Thank you for bringing this miracle into my life." He leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her lips, their first real kiss since their wedding. "I love you, both of you." "I love you too," Olivia replied, realizing the words were absolutely true. Somewhere along the way, from that desperate meeting outside the general store to this perfect moment, she had fallen completely in love with Xavier Callahan. As winter gave way to spring, life settled into a new rhythm at the Callahan ranch. Little James, or JX as Xavier affectionately called him, thrived under the loving attention of both his parents. Though he had been born of another man, Xavier treated the boy exactly as if he were his own flesh and blood, spending hours rocking him, talking to him about the ranch, and making elaborate plans for his future. Eliza and Joseph visited in April, bearing gifts and eager to meet their nephew. Watching Xavier proudly show off the baby to his sister, Olivia felt a contentment she had never known before. "You look happy," Eliza commented one afternoon as they sat on the porch, watching Xavier demonstrate proper horseback posture to an obviously uncomprehending 3-month-old James. "Marriage agrees with you." "It does," Olivia agreed with a smile, "though I suspect it's the husband more than the institution itself." Eliza laughed. "Xavier's a good man, stubborn and sometimes too serious for his own good, but good to his core." She gave Olivia a knowing look. "And completely besotted with you, in case you hadn't noticed." Olivia blushed. Since James's birth, Her relationship with Xavier had deepened in every way, including the physical intimacy they had postponed during her pregnancy. Each day brought new discoveries about her husband, his unexpected sense of humor, his passion for poetry that he tried to hide, his unwavering commitment to those he loved. "The feeling is mutual," Olivia assured her sister-in-law. "When I came west, I hoped for security and perhaps companionship. I never expected to find this kind of happiness. Some might call it fate," Eliza mused. "If Bradford hadn't rejected you, you'd never have met Xavier." "I prefer to think of it as providence," Olivia said. "Though Xavier likes to say Bradford did him the greatest favor of his life by being a dishonorable fool." As spring blossomed into summer, the ranch prospered under Xavier's capable management. Olivia, fully recovered from childbirth, took an increasing interest in the business side of ranching, discovering a talent for accounting that complemented Xavier's practical knowledge. "You know, you're half the reason the ranch is doing so well this year," Xavier told her one evening as they reviewed the quarterly figures. "Your organization has saved us money I didn't even know we were wasting." "It's our ranch," Olivia corrected gently. "Our success." Xavier's expression grew serious. "There's something I've been meaning to discuss with you about that." He pulled a document from his desk drawer and handed it to her. Olivia scanned the legal paper, her eyes widening as she realized what she was reading. "Xavier, this makes me joint owner of everything: the land, the cattle, the house." "As you should be," Xavier said firmly. "We're partners in every sense of the word, Olivia. What's mine is yours now and always." Touched by his generosity, Olivia set the paper aside and moved to sit on his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Thank you for this, and for everything. When I stepped off that stagecoach last October, I never imagined my life could turn out this way." Xavier pulled her closer. "You know, I rode into town that day on a whim. Wasn't planning to go until the next week, but something told me I needed to go right then." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Best impulse I ever followed." "For me as well," Olivia agreed, leaning in to kiss him. A cry from the cradle in the corner interrupted them. Xavier chuckled. "Someone's demanding attention." "He has your timing," Olivia teased, rising to check on James. Xavier followed, watching as she lifted their son. "He has your eyes, though, and your smile." "And your appetite," Olivia added as James made his hunger known with increasing volume. "Would you like to hold him while I get ready to feed him?" With practiced ease, Xavier took the baby, cradling him against his broad chest. "Hey there, little man. Your ma's going to feed you in just a minute." "No need for all this fuss." As if understanding, James's cries subsided to hiccuping whimpers. Xavier continued to talk to him in a low, soothing voice while Olivia prepared to nurse. "He knows his pa's voice," Olivia observed, settling into the rocking chair. Xavier handed James back to her, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking about that, about being his pa, I mean." Olivia looked up, suddenly anxious. "You've been a wonderful father to him." "Thank you, but I want to make it official." Xavier knelt beside the rocking chair. "I want to adopt James legally. I want him to be a Callahan in every sense, with all the rights and protections that entails." Relief and gratitude washed over Olivia. "Xavier, that would mean everything to me." "To me too," Xavier admitted. "He's my son in my heart already. Has been since the moment I first held him. I just want the law to recognize what we already know." Olivia touched his cheek, overcome with love for this man who had embraced her child so completely. "Yes, let's make it official." In October 1872, exactly 1 year after Olivia first arrived in Ukiah, the Callahans hosted a celebration at the ranch. The official reason was to mark James's formal adoption, finalized the previous week. But for Olivia and Xavier, it was also a celebration of the journey that had brought them together. As evening fell, lanterns illuminated the yard where friends and neighbors gathered to share food, music, and conversation. Little James, now 8 months old and recently mastering the art of crawling, was passed from admirer to admirer, clearly enjoying being the center of attention. "He's going to be a heartbreaker when he grows up," Mrs. Landry predicted, bouncing James on her knee. "Look at those eyes, just like his mother's." "Heaven help us all," Xavier agreed with a laugh, putting his arm around Olivia's waist. As the celebration continued around them, Xavier led Olivia away from the crowd, toward the small hill that overlooked the ranch house. The October air was crisp, but the sky was clear, stars beginning to appear in the darkening blue. "Happy anniversary," Xavier said quietly when they reached the top. Olivia looked at him in surprise. "Anniversary? 1 year ago today you stepped off that stagecoach and into my life," Xavier explained. "Seems worth commemorating, don't you think?" "Absolutely," Olivia agreed, touched that he remembered the exact date. "It's been quite a year." "The best of my life," Xavier said simply. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I have something for you." Olivia opened the box to find a gold ring set with a single pearl. "Xavier, it's beautiful." "It was my mother's," he explained. "I wanted to give it to you when we married, but it was being cleaned and sized in Sacramento. Eliza brought it when they visited." He took the ring and slipped it onto her finger, alongside the plain gold band he'd given her at their wedding. "There. Now you have a proper set." "I love it," Olivia said sincerely. "And I love you, Xavier Callahan, more than I ever thought possible." Xavier pulled her close. "When I said I'd honor what Bradford wouldn't, I had no idea how much I'd be gaining. You and James are the greatest blessings of my life." As they stood together under the vast California sky, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the desperate young widow who had traveled west seeking security, to the confident wife and mother she had become, it was a transformation she could never have predicted. "What are you thinking?" Xavier asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "I'm thinking about how sometimes the most painful moments lead to the greatest joys," Olivia replied. "If Bradford had kept his word, I'd have married a man who saw me as nothing more than cheap labor. Instead, I found you a man who sees me as a partner and loves me for who I am." Xavier kissed her forehead. "Bradford's loss, my eternal gain." From the yard below, they heard James's distinctive cry. "Sounds like our son wants his parents," Xavier said with a smile. "Then we shouldn't keep him waiting," Olivia replied, taking her husband's hand. Together, they walked back down the hill toward the lights of home, where their son and their future awaited. 5 years later, the Callahan Ranch had nearly doubled in size and prosperity. Xavier's innovative breeding techniques and Olivia's sharp business acumen had transformed their operation into one of the most successful in Mendocino County. The family, too, had grown. 3-year-old Sarah Elizabeth had joined the family 2 years after James's adoption, followed by 1-year-old Michael Robert. On a warm summer evening in 1877, Olivia stood on the porch, watching as Xavier taught 6-year-old James to rope a practice dummy. The boy's face was a picture of concentration as he mimicked his father's movements, dark hair falling across his forehead just like Xavier's. "Like this, Pa?" James asked, attempting the throw. "That's it, JX," Xavier encouraged as the loop settled over the dummy's head. "You've got a natural talent for this," James beamed with pride. "Can I try with a real calf tomorrow?" "We'll see," Xavier hedged, ruffling the boy's hair. "Let's master the dummy first." Sarah tugged at Olivia's skirt. "Mama, when can I learn to rope?" "When you're a bit bigger, sweetheart," Olivia promised, lifting her daughter into her arms. "Your father taught me, you know. I wasn't much good at first, but I improved with practice." "Really?" Sarah's eyes widened. "You can rope too." "Your mother can do anything she sets her mind to," Xavier said, approaching with James at his side. "It's one of the many reasons I love her." Olivia smiled, knowing he meant every word. Their partnership had only strengthened over the years, built on a foundation of mutual respect, shared goals, and deep affection that had blossomed into enduring love. As the family gathered on the porch to watch the sunset, a daily ritual they rarely missed, Olivia felt a profound sense of gratitude. The pain and uncertainty of her arrival in Ukiah seemed like a lifetime ago. Here, surrounded by her children and the husband who had honored her when another man wouldn't, she had found not just security, but joy beyond measure. "What are you thinking about?" Xavier asked quietly, his arm around her shoulders. Olivia leaned into his embrace. "I was thinking that sometimes the most beautiful journeys begin with a closed door." Xavier nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "And sometimes the best decisions a man can make are the ones that come from the heart rather than the head." As twilight deepened into night, the Callahan family remained together on the porch, their laughter and conversation drifting out across the ranch that had become not just their livelihood, but the center of their shared life, a life built on courage, commitment, and love that had been unexpected but was no less precious for having arrived in such an unconventional way.